Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivraja Kacharya Astotada Sata Shri Srimati Charanadavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jagat Guru ISKCON BBT Founder Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Redhyanta Stobhya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Welcome, dear devotees, for this class. We have this great opportunity to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees. Today we're going to read from Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 21, in a chapter entitled Lord Krishna's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. Imam lokam amum chaiva. Imam lokam amam chaiva. Ramayam sutaram yadun. Ramayan sutaram yadun. Remekshana dayadata. Remekshana dayadata. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva. Ramayan Sutaram Yadun. Remekshana Dayadata. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva. Ramayan Sutaran Yadun. Remekshana Dayadata. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva. Ramayan Sutaram Yadun. Remekshana Dayadata. Shanat Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva. Ramayan Sutaram Yadun. Remekshana Dayadata. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam Lokam Amum Chaiva. Ramayan Sutaram Yadun. Remekshana Dayadata. Shana Sri Shana Suridaha. Imam lokamamum chaiva Yamayan sutaram yadun Remekshana dayadata Shana srishana sodidaha Imam lokamamum chaiva Ramayan sutaram yadun Remekshana dayadata Shana sri shana sodidaha. So word by word. Imam, this. Lokam, earth. Amum, and the other worlds. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Ramayan, pleasing. Sutaram, specifically. Yadun, the Yadus. Reme, enjoyed. Shanadaya, by night. Data, given by. Shana, leisure. Stri, women. Shana, conjugal love. Suridaha, friendship. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord enjoyed His pastimes, both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu Dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, He enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Purport. The Lord enjoyed in this world with His pure devotees. Although He is the personality of Godhead and is transcendental to all material attachment, He nevertheless exhibited much attachment for His pure devotees on the earth, as well as for the demigods who engage in His service in the heavenly planets as powerful delegated directors in the management of all material activities. He displayed special attachment for His family members, the Yadus, as well as for His 16,000 wives, who had the opportunity to meet Him in the leisure hours of night. All these attachments of the Lord are manifestations of His internal potency, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation. In the Skanda Purana, Prabhu chapter, in the topics between Lord Shiva and Gory, there is a confirmation of His internal potential manifestations. There is mention of the Lord's meeting with 16,000 cowherd damsels, although He is the Hamsa, transcendental supersoul, and maintainer of all living entities. The 16,000 cowherd damsels are a display of 16 varieties of internal potencies. This will be more elaborately explained in the 10th canto. It is said there that Lord Krishna is just like the moon, and the internal potential damsels are like the stars around the moon. So we can see this is a very beautiful verse today. Starting with the pranam mantras. Om Agyanti Midandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sundubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goda Tivashe Namaha Shriman Rasarasamambi Vamsi Vata Tatashtitaha Kashan Venus Vene Gopi Gopinata Shriyashtunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome, dear devotees, this glorious occasion of glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam, because as we know from the 12th canto, chapter 13, text 16, the Purana which is the greatest is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're here in the association of the devotees. I pray for your blessings that we can say the right things at the right time in the proper glorification of this beautiful verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we have concepts in this class such as Lord Shiva's conversation with Gory, and we also have concepts such as the conjugal love, and then furthermore we have a glorification of the Yadu Dynasty. We know in the Srimad Bhagavatam it's explained, Aho alam slagatamam Yadu kulam. So, oh alas, supremely glorious is that Yadu Dynasty in which Krishna was born. So Prabhupada explains about the Yadu Dynasty in the way that they're all Nitya Siddhas, or eternally perfected souls. It's much like the Vraja Bhakti or the Gopis of Vrindavan. They're eternally perfect, the Yadu Dynasty. And there's beautiful explanations that those people who are exhilarated to hear about the Yadu Dynasty, they're also Nitya Siddhas. So if we're hearing and with, oh wow, isn't that amazing, then that is on the platform of eternally perfect as well, which is explained by Srila Prabhupada. And there's a very beautiful Leela where the Yadu Dynasty demonstrated their kindness and their compassion when they came across a very deep well. And in this well was a big lizard. So then the Yadu Dynasty yelled out, is there anything we can do to help? And they eventually tied up this lizard and pulled him out. And this lizard was actually King Nriga. So Prabhupada's explanation was that when you commit even the slightest of mistake, then you can actually be punished, as was King Nriga, performed a very slight error, slight offense, and therefore he's made into a lizard and put into the bottom of this well to be saved by the Yadu Dynasty. So that's the glorious activities of the Yadu Dynasty. And we can also look, there's numerous times where Krishna was fighting with Jarasandha and Kaliyavana, and then Rukmini turns to Krishna and says, aren't you worried about this massive military force? And then Krishna was very blasé. He said, no, I have the soldiers of the Yadu Dynasty. Why would I worry at all? So they're very strong, they're very pious. And so Krishna was born in this lineage. And then we go on to the conjugal love. So there's a very beautiful chapter of Nectar of Devotion entitled Conjugal Love, and it's chapter 44. So in there it's explained that Rupa Goswami only talks about conjugal love very briefly, because those people who are in conjugal love, they don't need to hear about it because they're feeling it themselves, whereas those people who are not in conjugal love with Krishna, they have so much material misunderstandings that they will misunderstand the conjugal love. So that's why it's only mentioned very briefly. So when we look at conjugal love, it's explained, there's lots of descriptions, say for example in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali and the Gita Govinda, and it explains that conjugal feelings are not at all material. So we have this element of conjugal loving feelings in the material world, because essentially all the material devotees or materialists are looking for that adiras, or that original love that was there present with Krishna, because Krishna is the object of all conjugal feelings. So, and then the impetus for conjugal love are Krishna and his dearmost consorts, such as Radharani and her immediate associates. So why would Krishna be the object of everyone's love? It's because he has no rival. There's no one rivaling him in terms of beauty. There's no one rivaling him in terms of knowledge. There's no one rivaling him in terms of wealth. Therefore, he is the cynosure. The cynosure means the single point of everyone's vision. And Krishna even explains that to Arjuna, and therefore all of us, Eke ha kuru nandana. So exclusive, single-pointed focus on Krishna as dear as one's life and soul. So Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. That's his name, Govinda. He is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure. And it's explained in the Conjugal Love chapter that out of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most prominent. And then it says, her eyes defeat the attractive features of the eyes of the chakori bird. When one sees the face of Srimati Radharani, he immediately hates the beauty of the moon. Her bodily complexion defeats the beauty of gold. Thus let us all look upon the transcendental beauty of Srimati Radharani. So it's explained the conjugal feelings between Krishna and Radharani heightened by her neglect, because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that there's three prominent features in Srimati Radharani. She's contrary, she's elusive, and she's shy. So this shyness is demonstrated by Srimati Radharani, and it's felt by Krishna as a neglect. So rather than feeling that neglect is negative to him or it doesn't heighten his pleasure, it's explained that increases Krishna's pleasure hundreds and hundreds of times. So when we look at Jayadev Goswami's Gita Govinda, it's explained that Krishna embraces Srimati Radharani at times, and then he immediately becomes entangled in a loving condition for her, so much that he completely forgets about everything else. And there's beautiful stories with Vrikasura, where Vrikasura is lying dead and his body is being eaten by jackals, and then only out of the corner of his eye he sees Srimati Radharani playing in the bushes, and then it's explained that Krishna's eyebrows are like lightning directed towards Srimati Radharani. He immediately forgets the dead body composed being eaten by jackals, and then he looks exclusively at Srimati Radharani, and then that's enough to overwhelm him with feelings of conjugal love. So Krishna has a weapon in his armory against the gopis, and that's his flute. And recently I was hearing a lecture by His Holiness Indrajumna Swami saying that the flute can actually blow on its own accord as well to enchant Krishna. So even when Krishna puts the flute down, that flute has a personality which will blow beautiful sounds to please Krishna. So the gopis of Vrindavan are very attracted to Krishna's flute, so much so that they immediately forget all the rebukes offered by the elderly members of their families and their defamation and the harsh behavior of their husbands. So when Krishna blows his flute, the gopis run out into the forest of Vrindavan even in the middle of the night. They can be half clothed, they can put their makeup on very quickly, and so they're running out. So essentially, Rupa Goswami gives an explanation of saying anubhav, which is the sub-ecstasy in conjugal love. So this anubhav is seen when the gopis of Vrindavan and Krishna exchange sideward long glances and they start joking and laughing together. So this is still on the level of sub-ecstasy. So it's explained further that within conjugal love there's vipralamba bhav, or vipralamba, or love in separation, and there's also sambhoga, so love in union. And vipralamba love is separated into three further categories. The one is purvarag, which means the preliminary feelings of love, and then there's man, or the anger, and then finally there's the prabhas, or the distance between them. So we can understand Purvarag, the preliminary feelings of love, in the Padyavali, Rupa Goswami explains, Srimati Radharani says to one of her eternal consorts, I saw this boy down playing by the Jamuna River. His complexion was dark like a rain cloud. And when I saw him, I immediately forgot everything. So much so that even now, when I come home and try to perform my household duties, I can't do them because my mind is completely absorbed in him. So this is the preliminary feelings of conjugal love. They still haven't met yet, they haven't, exchanged any loving words, it's still, there's distance, it's preliminary. And this is preliminary, Purvarag is also there in Rukmini. Because her whole life, Rukmini was hearing her father glorify Krishna so much. Oh, he's so wonderful, he's killed so many demons, he's so chivalrous, he's fun, he's adventurous. And so Rukmini was eternally hearing from the time of her birth all these beautiful qualities of Krishna. So that preliminary Purvarag was aroused in Rukmini as well. And so then as we move on to the man, or the anger aspect, it's explained further in Gita Govinda by Jayadev Goswami that Srimati Radharani had this feeling of anger. So whenever Krishna expanded himself to enjoy with each one of the other gopis, Srimati Radharani felt that anger. And if we go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it explains that Srimati Radharani demonstrates her anger by her hairstyle and the way her sari is draped across her breast. So that's an explanation of Srimati Radharani's anger. So that's man, and there's lots more times when it's explained by Srila Prabhupada that Srimati Radharani actually leaves the Rasa Lila dance out of anger. And some people thought it was a jealous anger towards the other gopis, but actually it's anger on the sense that Srimati Radharani knows that she can please Krishna more than anyone else when they're alone together. So when he expands into multiple forms to dance with Lalita, Vishaka, Tunga Vidya, Champakalata, Sudevi, Rangadevi, Chitra Devi, then his love is on a lower level. But when it's exclusively with Srimati Radharani, that's the highest level of love. So then, if further in the chapter 44, it explains Srimati Radharani's ideas and what she's saying, and she's actually composed a prayer saying, Dear Mr. Cupid, please stop throwing your flower arrows towards me. Dear Mr. Air, please stop blowing the fragrance of Krishna towards me. I'm now bereft of Krishna's loving attitudes. So now that I cannot have Krishna's loving attitude, what is the use of sustaining this useless body? So this is a sign of frustration in ecstatic love for Krishna. So she's frustrated. She wants to be with Krishna, but then in the same way she knows that it's not the right thing to do according to the harsh, cynical behavior of her elder members in her family. So there's other beautiful explanations of the instance of jubilation in ecstatic love for Krishna. So there's Srimati Radharani further revealed her mind, and she says, I'm like a female elephant who's been aroused by a male elephant. So this is an instance of the jubilation in ecstatic love. So conjugal love is very deep. It's a very high level of understanding. And if we go back to the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that sex life, according to the Vedic injunctions, is actually Krishna himself. So for us in this position, we're never going to be on the level of Srimati Radharani. She's to an infinite degree greater than us, and that's her eternal position. But for us, we can understand that we want to get out of this material attachment and then go back to our eternal home with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that chapter it also explains how panic-stricken the gopis are as a result of the separation from Krishna. As we're going back to the last point in conjugal love is the prabhas, or the feeling of separation. And so much so that when Akrura comes with Krishna and to get Krishna and Balaram under the invitation of King Kamsa for the wrestling match to take him to Mathura, The gopis were completely panic-stricken, they were completely devastated, so much so that some of them were throwing themselves in front of the chariot, some of them were, lost their minds, and so this is the feeling of being completely in separation from their lover, which is still part of the conjugal love. And then the other phase is sambhoga, or the love, conjugal love in union. And so we see this with the rasa dance, and we see this also with the Julan Yatra. So when Krishna and Radharani are swinging on the swing, that's an instance of the sambhoga. So, which moves us on now to the understanding of Shiva's conversation with Gory. So Shiva has a lot of conversations with Gory. There's Sri Radha Sahasranama Stotra, where Shiva is discussing with Gory the 1,000 names of Srimati Radharani. And it's a very beautiful prayer, and we should be very fortunate if we can study that at some point in time. So Lord Shiva is known as Mahadev, or the greatest of all demigods. And even if we go to Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, text 23, Krishna personally says, of all the Rudras, I am Shiva. So Shiva doesn't exist on the platform of Jiva Tattva, nor is he in the position of Krishna Tattva. He has his own very special place as Shiva Tattva. And so when we think of Shiva in a crematorium ground with the skulls and crossbones around his neck, and the 3-line tilak, and the long hair, and he's just drunk the poison, and he's associating with ghosts, hobgoblins and witches, and he has wild dancing which destroys the whole cosmos, and he's in charge of the presiding deity of Tamagun. Yes, this is true, but also the Gaudiya Vaishnavas see Shiva in another light, because we understand from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra that Shiva is also a Brajvasi. So he loves Krishna in the mood of a Vrajvasi. And this is the shloka here, 12, 13, 16. Nimna ganam yata ganga devanam achyuto yata vaishnavanam yata shambhu purnanam idam tata. Just as the Ganga is the greatest of all rivers, Lord Achyuta, the supreme among deities, and Lord Shambhu, Shiva, the greatest of Vaishnavas, so Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all Puranas. So Lord Shiva has Krishna Prema, and he can give us Krishna Prema. It's explained that there are 5 personalities can allow us entry into Vrindavan. There's Govardhan Hill, the Jamuna River, Braj Raj, Lord Shiva and Vrindadevi. So they can allow us entry into Vrindavan. And there's a very beautiful pastime which explains Lord Shiva as the gatekeeper or protector of Vrindavan. Because if we go to the Rasa Stali in Vrindavan, there's a very beautiful place where the actual Rasa Lila takes place eternally at the same time every night. And on the gate to that Rasa Stali is Lord Shiva. So we know that he's the protector. So how does that come about? Because we know when everyone hears Braj Lila, our hearts become melted, and we want to take part in those pastimes. So Lord Shiva was non-different. He heard the Braj Lila, the pastimes of the cowherd damsels with Krishna, and so then he wanted to take part. So he got down from Kailash Hill, and he ran straight to Vrindavan, straight to the Rasa Stali, and then he met Purnamasi. And he revealed his mind to Purnamasi, saying, I want to take part in this Rasa Lila dance. Can I take part? And then, so Purnamasi's first response was, well, you actually have to be in the mood of a gopi. You have to have a female form to take part in this Rasa Lila dance. So then what happens was Purnamasi says, don't worry, I'll take you for a bath and then see how it evolves. So Purnamasi takes him for a bath in the Mansarovar lake, and so Shiva puts himself under the water, and then he emerges from the water in a female gopi form. So we know that Kameshwara Mahadev is still worshipped in this gopi form every night in Vrindavan. So there's a Shiva lingam in Kameshwara Mahadev temple, and so the devotees, the Brijvasis, dress Lord Shiva's lingam up in a gopi dress. They give him earrings, they give him beautiful scented oils, much in the mood that he can take part in this Rasa Lila dance. So Lord Shiva then comes into the Rasa Stali in his female form, and then he starts participating in the Rasa Lila dance. But then Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani feel that there's something wrong. For some reason, there's something wrong. So then Srimati Radharani inquires from Lalita Devi, there's something wrong with this Rasa Lila dance. You'll have to organize it. And then she said, well, there's actually a new girl that's attended this Rasa Lila dance, so perhaps if we just have a conversation with her. So then they start asking her, what village are you from? And then Lord Shiva thinks, he was about to say Kailash, but then he held it back because he realized, okay, that would give away his cover. And then so he didn't have anything to say, and then they said, well, what's your husband's name? Where is your village? How many thousands of cows does your husband have? And so Lord Shiva couldn't answer any of these questions at all. So then they thought, well, okay, let's lift up the veil. And so on Shiva's forehead they see 3 eyes, and the snake. So then I think, well, okay, then they started thinking about Shiva as being an imposter. So what happened was then, when everyone, the gopis are also very protective of Srimati Radharani and Krishna as well. So what they did was they started calling Shiva imposter, started, with their man, their anger, they started, exhibiting that, get out of here. But then Purnamasi intervened, and Purnamasi said to all the gopis, well, this is actually Mahadev, the greatest of all demigods. This is the pastime that's unraveling. So why don't you just allow him to enter into the Rasa dance? But they were very firm. Only gopis of Vrindavan can enter into the Rasa dance. It's not for Lord Shiva. So therefore, then Purnamasi saw that Lord Shiva left. And so Lord Shiva left, and there's a very beautiful place in Vrindavan called Rudra Kund, and that's where Lord Shiva's tears were flowing like tears of, so much tears filled up this Rudra Kund. And then so Purnamasi found Lord Shiva and said, well, I can sense that you want to take part in this Braj Basi pastimes, so perhaps we can make you the gatekeeper or the protector. So Purnamasi personally gives Lord Shiva the boon of being the protector of the holy Dharma of Vrindavan. So even to this day, Lord Shiva is the protector, he's the gatekeeper. And then recently, you can read Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as the harmonist, and he's quoting Sri Sankalpa Kalpadruma Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he says, O Shiva, O gatekeeper of Vrindavan, O you who are accompanied by goddess Uma, O you who carried the moon in your hair, O Lord worshipped by Sanandana Kumar, Sanat Kumar and Narada Muni, O Gopishvara worshipped by the gopis, I beg you to bestow on me love for the lotus feet of the divine couple who performed joyous pastimes in Braja. I repeatedly offer my obeisances to you. So that's the understanding of the gopis. Even the gopis worship Lord Shiva as Mahadev, and then Lord Shiva can actually bestow prema bhakti onto any one of us as well. The devotees go to Lord Shiva and they offer him water from the kund, and they sometimes offer them braj raj and bale fruits. And so Prabhupada gave us a very nice understanding of Lord Shiva in the 4th canto, chapter 24. The entire chapter is the song of Lord Shiva. And Prabhupada further reiterates that Lord Shiva is the best of all devotees. Therefore, devotees of Lord Shiva are also devotees of Lord Krishna, and one can approach the Lord through the medium of his devotees. So we know from the Yadu Purana that Krishna says to Arjuna, he who says he is my devotee is not my devotee, but he who says he is the devotee of my devotee, he is my devotee. So when we go to Vrindavan, we can see there's 4 very prominent representations of Lord Shiva in his lingam form. So we have Gopishvara Mahadev, we have Kameshwara Mahadev, we have Chakleshwara Mahadev, and we also have Nandeshwara Mahadev. So as Lord Shiva knew that he wanted to be a Braj Bhakta even before Lord Krishna advented in this world. So it's explained that Lord Krishna saw the tapas and the austerity that Lord Shiva was performing. We often see gurus go to Kailash and it's freezing cold, and some gurus say they thought they were going to die just as a result of the air thinning. Lord Shiva lives there eternally on Kailash, and he performs a lot of austerities. So as a result of that, Krishna comes to him and says, I can see your austerity, so I wish to grant you a boon. So the boon that Lord Shiva asked for is to be a mountain in Vrindavan. So the mountain was automatically, Krishna is very reciprocative, so he gave Nandishvara hill, as Lord Shiva is now present in mountain form as Nandishvara hill in Nandagaon. And so Nanda Maharaj built his whole capital city on Lord Shiva in his mountain form. So that's Nandishvara. And then so Krishna said, why do you want to be a mountain in Vrindavan, even, hundreds of thousands of years before I'm personally going to be manifest in this world? And Lord Shiva's response was, I'm willing to wait hundreds of millions of lifetimes if I just get the dust of the gopis' lotus feet on my head. Because he knows that the gopis will eventually run up and down Nandishvara hill and therefore place their dust of their lotus feet on his head. So in Vrindavan, Gopishvara is one of the most prominent deities in Vrindavan. It's in the center of Vrindavan, and a lot of devotees, to begin their parikram, they go to Vrindavan, to Gopishwara Mahadev, begging for blessings so that their parikram can be nice and it can be, fulfilling, and eventually to get prema bhakti, which Lord Shiva can bestow upon us. So there's a further beautiful text in Bhakti Ratnakara discussing Lord Shiva's potency, 5:37-41. I offer my respectful obeisances to Gopishvara, who is Lord Shiva himself. He is very merciful, removes all troubles, and grants spiritual love in Vrindavan. And then even in Lord Shiva has made his way into Braj Dham Mahimamrita, Jaya Jaya Gopishvara Vrindavana Maj. So all glories to Gopishvara, Shiva who resides in the holy Dham of Vrindavan. So then we move on to Kameshwara. There's 4 Shiva lingams in Vrindavan. Kameshwara. So Kameshwara is glorified as the place where, when Vrishabhanu and Kirtada were hoping to begin a family, they went to Kameshwara Mahadev and begged blessings such that they could have children which, I quote, glorify his family's devotion to the Supreme Lord. So this is the prayer by King Vrishabhanu, and of course we know that Mother Kirtada and King Vrishabhanu had 3 children. The eldest son was Sridham, who's a very prominent cowherd boy, and then Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani is the second child, and then the youngest child is Ananga Manjari. So they went to Manikanika Kund, they took bath there, they paid obeisances to Lord Shiva in his Kameshwara Mahadev form, and then they were begging for the blessing of having these great children who will glorify their love and adoration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you might say, well, this is the activities of Nityasiddhas. Why do they need to perform these rituals? So that's often the behavior of the eternally perfected souls. They don't think, oh, okay, I don't need to engage in all these rituals, but still they did it because they knew whatever actions a great man performs, other people would follow as well. Which moves us on to Chakleshwara Mahadev. So in the northern part of Manasi Ganga, there's a Shiva lingam there called Chakleshwara Mahadev, and it was originally installed by Lord Krishna's great-grandson, Vajranabha. So he built a temple there and installed, there was a deity, Chakleshwara Mahadev. And Sanatan Goswami spent a lot of time there. And then in Sanatan Goswami, he was noticing that there's a lot of mosquitoes there. So Chakleshwara Mahadev, he went and paid obeisances and said, so many more pilgrims would come here and enjoy your association, Lord Shiva, if you could only just rid us of all these mosquitoes. So still to this day, as a result of Sanatan Goswami's prayer, there's no mosquitoes or flying insects in that region of Chakleshwara Mahadev, the northern part of Manasi Ganga. And it's really beautiful that it's explained that if you even are in association with a pure devotee, this is a prayer that was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even being in the association of a pure devotee, you immediately become infused with their Vraja Bhakti. So it's just the association alone. However, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur reminds us that we have to take the responsibility of ourselves to then attach ourselves to the Vraja Bhakti that emanates from the pure devotee and install it in our own heart. So there has to be that desire, and so therefore that there is a transmission from the pure devotees, and Lord Shiva is one of those pure devotees. You often see a lot of devotees living close by these Shiva lingams so that they can get the blessing from Lord Shiva in his pure devotee form. So that's Chakleshwara Mahadev. Unfortunately, the original temple was destroyed by Muslim invaders, and then at this point in time, the devotees there have put a recent temple there. So we can go there, we can take pilgrimage, we can pay dandavats, we can beg blessings from Lord Shiva such that we can become pure devotees. And then the final one is Nandishvara. So on Nandishvara hill, which Lord Shiva is the whole hill, there's also a Shiva lingam there called Nandishvara. Such was his desire to be in the association of Nanda Maharaj, and such was his desire to be a hill that he could get the gopis' lotus feet on his forehead. So, and then when we go into it deeper, the Vaishnava Acharyas actually say that Lord Shiva is present in every forest. He's on the side of every lake, he's on the side of every river, he's on the side of every kund, and he's very present in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So, and when I read this Purvakam, I did actually read the Purvakam of the Skanda Purana. It's interesting to understand that Skanda is actually the son of Lord Shiva and Gory or Uma or Parvati. And so he writes this beautiful Skanda Purana. And when we go specifically to this prayer or the conversation between Gory and Lord Shiva, it's nice that, as Prabhupada says, it's explaining the beauty of the Vraja Gopis, and it sets the scene originally about a whole, Lord Shiva and Gory were in this beautiful heavenly palace with so many beautiful flowers and so many beautiful birds were singing, and then so therefore it's a very auspicious or sanctified place where Lord Shiva could explain to Lord Gory the glories of Vraja Bhakti, and particularly the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan. So there's another, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in his Vraja Riti Chintamani 1.5, the devotees declare that Nandishvara hill, the form of Lord Shiva, now shining as Nanda Maharaj capital, is an endlessly beautiful crown decorating Vraja. So it's a beautiful crown, it's going to be there, and we can go there and we can take parikram and take the dust of Lord Shiva's lotus feet such that we can become pure devotees of the Lord. So essentially, the other point I wanted to make is Prabodhananda Saraswati has also glorified the Vraja Gopis by saying, "My body has attained the unpleasant stage of old age, my lifespan is reduced and my senses have little strength and grasp the strong sense objects. What shall I do? The land of Vrindavan, which removes all distress, is situated far away and I am unable to attain the crest jewel. The association of the residents of that transcendental abode will purify us." So we can associate with the pure devotees, we can associate with Lord Shiva. It was very nice to read chapter 24 of the 4th canto, the entire song of Lord Shiva, and it's very beautifully explained about his glorification of Krishna. And so Lord Shiva is saying, here I'll just find it, "Any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me." So Lord Shiva has that same mood of anyone who's surrendered to Krishna is also very dear to him. So today we've explained about the conjugal love of the gopis of Vrindavan, and it's also a reminder that it's only explained briefly, such that because when we get a drop of the nectar we can appreciate that. However, if we get too much it can be like a flood and then it drowns us. So we just get a little taste of the conjugal love of the gopis of Vrindavan. We also understand that Lord Shiva is a Braj Bhakta, he's eternally present in Vrindavan, and we can pray to him for entrance into Vrindavan, and we can also glorify the Yadu Dynasty for their activities. They're supremely glorious. And so now I'd just like to open it up. Would anyone like to make a comment or ask a question? Yes, Prabhu? Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. So it's 4:24:28. So 24 is the entire song of Lord Shiva, and then 4:24:28 is the actual description of, it's very dear to me, any person surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Yeah.
The five personalities which allow people to sell and Krishna.
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially that's the dust of Vrindavan. So the dust of Vrindavan is all pervading and it's all present. And there's a beautiful Leela that Radharani Swami tells, and he says, you know, all glories to the ants of Vrindavan, because their home is eternally in the dust of Vrindavan. The only food they eat is ever the remnants of the devotees who drop food on the floor. And so all glories to the ants of Vrindavan. So yeah, the dust of Vrindavan, and a lot of devotees actually keep the dust of Vrindavan. They put it on their altar. They can offer arati to the dust of Vrindavan, and that dust alone can grant us entrance into Vrindavan. And when you do Govardhan Parikram, there's beautiful places where the sand is really soft. It's like, there's explained just near Govindakund, I think Govindakund. There's sand there that's like talcum powder. So you feel, and then it's like, wow, this sand is so soft and nectar to the feet. And so that can actually grant us residence or entrance into Vrindavan as well. So, yeah. So, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Oh, sorry, Ishwara Prabhu? Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. Thank you so much. So, essentially, one of our Parikram gurus is Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, and he's given this very beautiful video presentation on Govardhan Parikram. And so he explains there that Sanatana Goswami was thinking about the future pilgrims that would go and see Chakleshwara Mahadev. So with so many disturbances such as mosquitoes and flying insects, that Sanatana Goswami was feeling compassion because he was given the instruction by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excavate all the holy pilgrimage sites. So then, just to make it a little bit, comfortable for the pilgrims there, so they can sit, associate with Chakleshwara Mahadev, he had the idea that even the mosquitoes were bothering him in his japa, in his chanting, in his paying obeisances, in his writings. So what to speak of the neophyte devotees who may not have become equipoised to hot and cold, to mosquitoes, non-mosquitoes. So then, therefore, he asked for the boon from Lord Shiva, such that there would be, these mosquitoes would go away. And so even to this day now, that boon has been bestowed, and so that place there is protected from mosquitoes and flying insects. So devotees can go there, peacefully chant their japa, they can listen to Krishna Katara, they can do kirtans, and be peaceful and not have to be bothered by the mosquitoes. Because I remember Sachinandan Maharaj said, we can actually shoo away those animals that have weapons. So mosquitoes do have the biting, and so therefore you're allowed to just shoo them away. So, yeah, Prabhu?
Earlier in the class you were mentioning how she was dissatisfaction. Krishna's so because he doesn't get attention. So how do we understand that point with what it says in Gory that she feels 10,000 times more happiness than Krishna and another Krishna.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you have to look at the selfless aspect of Srimati Radharani as well. So she does go through times when she's feeling like utmost or being selfless, as Nrsimha Kavacha Prabhu, when he gave class here, he was citing an example when, even someone comes into the temple room and screws a nail, then Srimati Radharani turns to Krishna and says, look how great this devotee is, she's so much more greater than me. So Srimati Radharani does have that desire to fulfill all of Krishna's desires, so she does go through that mood of being completely selfless, and so it's all, Radha Tattva is very inconceivable and it's very hard to understand. From our level, we can just look at it as Srimati Radharani is selfless, and then at other times she does demonstrate that anger to get Krishna's immediate association as well. Because further in that, there's an explanation where Srimati Radharani actually runs off, and she's talking with the creepers, revealing her mind, and she's saying, like, I was dancing with Krishna, and now I'm on my own, and then Krishna appears there and sees Radharani. So whilst that is true, that she feels that pleasure 10,000 times greater, that when Krishna's, it's the separation which is the highest, for sure. So there's just different ways of looking, or different vichars or angles of looking at the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. We should just find ourselves incredible fortunate and feel great gratitude that we get to hear these pastimes, for sure. Prabhu. Kameshwara Mahadev. So in Kamyavan, his role is numerous. Obviously he's protector of Kamyavan as well, because a lot of the pastimes go on there, and his role was also to grant the boon. And to any other devotee who wants to go to Kameshwara, they might be thinking of having children, and when Prabhupada explains the Garbhadana Samskara, there are a whole lot of rituals that before bearing children, that if you visit holy places, bathe in the kunds, and so Kameshwara Mahadev did grant that boon that King Vrishabhanu asked of Lord Shiva in his linga form. So there's multiple roles that every Shiva Linga performs, predominantly protecting and gatekeeping those who are unqualified to enter into that pastime place. Then Lord Shiva will act as the protector, because as we know, he has the goblins, the hobgoblins, the ghosts and the witches. So generally that drives people out who have material motives. And I heard Dinabandhu Prabhu explaining that often he would see that. People come to Vrindavan and they have their vision, I'm going to stay here for the whole of Kartik, and then literally they wake up the next morning, book a car and then go straight away, because it's the visitation of Lord Shiva's like ghosts and hobgoblins to protect the people who are unqualified. So, Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki.